What's going on, folks? Can you hear my voice and can you see my face?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
1 second, I gotta move this thing over here. I'm gonna take this thing. This camera is going all over the place. I have no idea what's going on with it. There we go. There we go. Okay, now I want to. How do I zoom in a little bit? There we go. Zoom in. Yeah, let's zoom in some more. Zoom in. Or zoom in some more. Okay, let's see. It's just Control plus. Alright, there we go. There we go. So here's the content. I haven't even given you the content yet, so I'm going to post that up in just, not just a second, but after we're done with this class. And then I think that this is I think we're pretty good. We're covering lesson 3, and I'm even going to post up lesson 4, but we need to talk about all this stuff first. So let's scroll up, and so we've been talking a lot about fuels lately, and we've been talking a lot about oil and how stupid people in the world are using oil, or at least I think that they are. Let's talk about, like, I think that this one's a really good one. Is let's see. I'll let you guys read this stuff over here. I'm not going to cover it, but here we go. All right. So what we've been doing is, for the last century, we've been looking for oil, and we've been looking for these fossil fuels. And how do we find them? Well, we have radar techniques. And let me see if I can go back. I'm not sure where that oh no, it's got to be down here. How do we find the oil? Well, we have these radar techniques. And what we do is it's kind of like just exactly like what a bat does. And we have some kind of big ship out here, and we have this ship send out a signal. And what they're using nowadays is this air gun array, and it's basically shooting air, like shooting this loud sounds, but not really sounds, more like just kind of sending out these waves and whatnot. We used to actually use dynamite. So they used to kind of throw dynamite off and then have the thing bounce off the bottom. And based on, like, the density of what it's hitting, it will bounce back differently. And then we're able to record that in another vessel, and then we would compare those two, the signals, and then we would say, oh, okay, so this is what not the ocean floor looks like, but this is what underneath the ocean floor looks like. Hey, there's a deep pocket over there. That's some good oil hunting, and then we can go and take out the oil, and that's really cool, right? So here's the thing is, we've been doing that for over a century, and what we do is, once we find that, we find a big field full of oil, full of fossil fuel, we'll drill down and check and basically pump it out. And what's really cool about it is that sometimes you drill down and there's oil, or there's a lot of pressure down there. And when there's a lot of pressure deep down in those, let me zoom out a little bit so I can get this whole picture in there. When there's a lot of pressure down there, what happens is, when you first puncture through the surface, because this oil is actually sitting inside of 2 pieces of rock. Like, there's what we call the shale layer, and that's like rock over here, and then there's another shale, and then there could be gas and oil and water would build up in there. And by the way, why is the oil over here and the water is over here? What are your thoughts? Why is the oil, like, just kind of hanging out there?
Isn't that bigger than the water?
What is that?
The density?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, you did that in like 4th grade, right? You guys took water, you put it inside of a cup, you took oil, you put it in a cup, and look, hey, guess what? The thing created a nice little layer. So we cool with that?
Yeah.
All right. So what they would do is we would find the oil, we would tap into it, and we'd poke a hole inside the earth, and all of a sudden, all this stuff would be gushing out, and that would be really cool because now you know you have a lot of pressure underneath there. You have these big, fountains of oil shooting out, which is a huge waste of oil, actually. But hey, what are you gonna do? I mean, you're talking about puncturing a hole in the earth. It's not like you can put a cap on it real quick, So, so you got that. Now here's the problem is, all right. So eventually, it's kind of like opening up a soda can. You open up a soda can, the thing will gush out, right? If you shake it up. Okay. So say that it gets under a lot of pressure. You open up the soda can, the thing will gush out, but it won't gush out forever. It's not gonna like gush until every last drop of soda is in your face. It's going to gush out initially, and then it's going to be like, I have too much pressure, and then eventually the pressure is going to normalize, and then it's going to be like, I'm cool. I can now be drunk. But then again, I'm not carbonated anymore because I lost all my carbon, so I'm going to taste flat. But hey, you're the one who shook me, right?
I should try that sometime.
Right, and you should try that far away from me. But what's going on is basically your pressure is lost, and so in order to get that, how do you get the soda out of the can once the pressure is lost? Because like technically you could drink soda by doing this and then opening it up and opening your mouth, and then all the water will come, all the soda will come in, but then eventually the soda will be lost. And what do you got to do? No, you don't turn it upside down. How are you going to turn the earth upside down?
Details.
Right. I'm just going to wait till the earth is on the other side, and technically gravity will just drop the oil out. No. Maybe God can do that. You'd be like, I want some oil. He takes the earth and goes, boop. There we go. Oil for my robot. All right. We cannot do that. How do we do it? How do we get it out?
A pump or something?
There we go. You pump it. Louder. All right. Anyway, I was listening to some Black Eyed Peas before we started this class. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And you can pump it. Now, you could have some catastrophes. Like, for example, why do we like using oil? Because we like lighting it on fire. But what happens if your oil is gushing out of the ground and it got lit on fire?
Well, they're flamethrower.
How do you... That is the earth, like, going medieval on your butt. Because it's like shooting out a big flamethrower. It's crazy. And sometimes... And actually, these flames could last for, like, weeks. Like, this one right here, in the year, I forgot, 1913, is the largest single oil fire in the history of the U.S. Of course, this was written in 1913, so I don't know if that's completely true. But check this out. Here's Los Angeles, and there's an oil flame thing. And it's crazy. It's a huge oil gusher. So, we've been doing this for 100 years. We're kind of running out. Like, in fact, I'm going to talk to you later about how we are running out. And we'll actually throw out the numbers out there. This isn't a hypothetical class. This isn't a class where we're like, oh, be afraid. And you're like, well, really? What's the numbers? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't really know the data. They say that you should be afraid. I don't know. We'll throw out the numbers and see what you think. And you'll find that it's not as clear-cut as you would think. You would want it to be. Because if it were clear-cut, then everyone would be afraid. But not everyone's afraid. So, I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens. So, there's a new technique when you want to get to oil. And what we've learned to do is this thing called... Have you guys ever watched Battlestar Galactica? It's like one of my favorite shows. I wouldn't recommend watching it because it's not a PG show, right? I definitely wouldn't let my kids watch it, but I don't know. What do you guys like?
I think high school would be okay.
Sophomores?
I've heard of it. I have not watched it.
Anyway, if you watch it, it's like you can't call yourself a nerd I don't know if you consider yourselves nerds, but you can't call yourself nerds until you've watched Battlestar Galactica, the newer one, because I think it's cool. Just letting you know. The Game of Thrones also falls in that category, but I definitely wouldn't recommend that to high schoolers. But, you know, I mean, you're officially a nerd when you've watched Game of Thrones and read The Watchmen and read,
Ender's Game.
Yeah, Ender's Game, and you understand what the number 42 really represents, and you watch Battlestar Galactica. But anyway, in Battlestar Galactica, I thought it was hilarious because they weren't allowed to say the F-bomb on TV, so they would say frack. That was the word they came up with, and they would always be like, "What the frack?" And I thought it was. I don't swear almost ever, but I found myself one time saying, "Frack, what's going on?" Like, and I thought it was funny. But anyway, they said frack, and they just used that belligerently. Is actually they used it because I mean they could totally use it, and it's talking about the civilization that's like an alien civilization. So it's not like they have the same exact words as us. So anyway, they use the word frack, but apparently, fracking is a process that we've learned to use in oil, in gathering this oil and getting the rest of the oil out of the hole. So what they would do is they would let me see if I have a good picture of it. By the way, fracking is a term used by Sir Colonel Edward Roberts in the U.S. Civil War. And basically, he saw an explosive go off, and he saw a bunch of cracks in the rock. That's what fracking is. It's creating fractures in the rock, hence the name fracking. Does that make sense?
Wow.
I'm not doing it just because I wanted to make a joke about like dropping the F-bomb. But I mean, it's basically you're creating fractures in the rock. So what we've learned to do is, in the past we've drilled wells straight down, okay? But what we've learned to do is drill a well really far down, and then we've learned to turn that drill horizontally and drill sideways for miles and miles and miles. We can drill really, really, really long tunnels, basically. And then what we do is, imagine you got this really deep, long tunnel, and I'm going to fill it up with maybe millions of gallons of water. And I'm going to fill it up with water, and say it fills up to the top, okay? Well, that's not going to do anything. You just filled a hole with water. Whoop-de-doo. But what I'm going to do is, let's say I put a cap on it, and then I put even more water after it's full to the top. I just keep pushing in the water, and like pushing in more and more and more. What's going to happen?
The oil will eventually.
What is that?
The oil is going to.
No, not really. But, well, I guess what's going to happen is the rock that is all inside of this tunnel is going to start to crack because there's so much pressure that is being put under. We're talking about putting in huge amounts of pressure. I mean, enough to crack rock underground. We're talking about lots and lots of water, and we're talking about huge amounts of pressure. But we're actually doing this in Texas, and we found that when we do this, if you crack open this shale, what we're calling shale, and in this case, in this picture, it's Marcellus shale. But if you crack open the shale, it will release some of the natural gases and the natural resources that we're looking for. Well, how do you keep these cracks open? Well, not only do you pump a lot of water down there, but you pump sand down there too. And if you pump sand down there, what it will do is when the rock cracks open because of the water, the sand will go up inside and it will keep those cracks open, releasing all of this natural resources out to us, and then we can pump all of that stuff up, and it will be we'll be able to gather this natural resource. That sounds pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about that? Like, is that a cool thing or is that a bad thing?
It sounds cool, but I don't really think that it's for.
Wow.
I mean,
I kind of feel bad. We're just basically putting a bunch of holes inside of the rock. And not only we're putting holes, we're breaking it all up. Like, that can't be good for the environment.
Well, never mind the property sitting on top of it.
Right. Like, I mean, like, you're drilling underneath people's homes, literally. And, of course, you're going maybe 10,000 feet below the surface, so I don't really know what that will do. But I imagine if you turn all of the rock underneath a home or underneath buildings into, like, broken rock, you're going to have broken homes. That's my guess. But I don't know. And we don't actually have... I can't tell you for sure, because I'm not an expert in this topic. But I'm also, like, I can't really say, oh, this is what I know, because no one really knows what the effects of this. This isn't actually, like... This is a approved process, but it's not a widely used process yet. Because here's the thing is, when we get... modern day fracking injects sand into the new cracks so that they don't close up. Frackers probably also inject some kind of chemicals. And what they mean is, like, they basically give the earth a Tums. Because, like, if you have too much bacteria in your stomach, you'll build up too much methane, and you can't, like, you'll feel constipated. So what you do is you can take an anti-gas pill, a Tums, and then, like, eat it, and that will basically allow these small little gas bubbles that are building up inside of your stomach and making you feel real sick into one giant one, and then you'll have, like, a mega fart. And that mega fart will basically release all of these gases, and you'll be able to feel a lot better. That's what they're kind of doing to the earth. They're pumping in the chemicals that will make the earth fart. And that fart that it's giving out, those natural gases, is stuff that we can really use. Those are what we call natural gases. So when you fart, that's natural gas too. But I mean,
We're not exactly collecting our farts to use it in any sort of productive way.
I think I remember I was watching this documentary and on, like, how Texas is doing it. And so, like, here's the problem with Texas is this could be a good technique to use. The problem is when you're doing this in Texas, you're needing, like, millions and millions and millions of gallons of water. Water's not necessarily a hot commodity in Texas, right? Like, Texas is kind of like the desert. So it's not like they got buckets and buckets of water to use. So what do they use? They use sewage water. They've kind of adopted the water treatment plant to start using, like, the recycled water that they have. Of course, this recycled water is not something people want to drink, so then they use it for different things like fracking. And I was kind of interested because the sewage plant or the water treatment plant that they were using says, well, we need energy to treat our water system. And they happen to use a natural gas. They've learned to use a natural gas for the sewage treatment plant, to run the sewage treatment plant. So the sewage treatment plant is running 95% on this new natural gas that they're using. You know what that natural gas is? Methane. You know where they get the methane from? Poop. There's methane in human poop. So since it's the sewage water treatment plant, that's where all the poop is going too. So they're like, sweet, we have free energy, and we're going to use it to clean the water enough to pump it down here and have it break up. So we're pumping poop water into our earth, having it break it up, giving the earth Tums that makes the earth fart. The gases come up. We collect that, and that's even more energy we can use. All from poop and poop water. Pretty cool, huh? All right, and that's what they're doing in Texas. So it's not like I would be, like, all down to use this. Now, here's the thing that we get out. We don't actually get out full-on oil. We get out what we call, in this process called fracking, we get out this thing called unconventional oil. It's oil shales or tar sands. Now, oil shale is, remember how I told you about how oil is created? A tree dies, and it's got a bunch of carbon energy in it. And then that tree sinks to the bottom, and then it basically goes down deep into the earth and is and is cooked by the heat of the earth. And it stays there in this cooking, high pressure situation for a long, long, long time, and it creates for us oil. Now, the shale that we get out of this fracking procedure is not full on oil. We get kind of what looks like this. It's like undercooked oil. It's kind of like oil that hasn't been inside of the Earth's oven for that long, or for long enough to make full-on oil, but it's stuff that we can kind of use. And then the tar sands is what they have in Canada, which I don't know what that's all about, but here's what tar sands look like, and that's basically overcooked stuff. So it's like what we're trying to use is we're trying to use this undercooked oil or undercooked rock oil or this overcooked sand oil that we can get. The thing is, though, we don't really like to. All right, so it says what's nice about the tar sands is there's these huge deposits in our neighbor Canada, and it's kind of like the same things with the La Brea tar pit. We actually have, oil in our La Brea tar pit, but the thing is we don't really. Burning it is not necessarily the best thing. It's kind of a dirty oil. So basically, what happens is when we burn this shale, the stuff that we're getting from fracking, the rocks that we have, it doesn't always yield a whole lot of oil. And the reason being is because a lot of the stuff you have, your oil is mixed up with other junk. It's mixed up with like other what was the word they use? All right, it's mixed up with a lot of organic matter, like undercooked stuff. So it's not like it yields as much as oil. So this shale stuff that we're doing, we're discovering, hey, there's this whole untapped resource that we can use. We can use poop water to get out this shale. That's really good stuff, but it's not as good as regular straight up oil, because if you burn it, it's like burning. You guys ever burn, like, when you go camping, you guys burn firewood, right?
Yes.
You ever burn the green firewood? You ever, like, try to cut down a tree and burn that?
Ugh.
It kind of burns junk. Like, it doesn't burn very well. Because it's not dry. If it's dry, it doesn't have any organic matter to, like, mess it up. But, like, if you ever, like leaves are extremely wet. So if you throw in a green firewood in there, it kind of just turns everything black, and it doesn't burn very nicely. Well, that's the same thing with this. This shale is not pure oil that's like we can use. So what can we do? Well, one thing that we tried doing is we tried pyrolyzing it, and that doesn't mean like break its spine and make it so it can't move. But pyrolyzing is basically pyro as in fire. So what we're going to do is, if the earth didn't finish cooking this thing, why don't we finish cooking it? And then we can burn it. Does that sound kind of stupid to you, though? Like, we're gonna try to get energy out of this thing.
By consuming a lot of energy.
But in order to get that energy out, we're going to have to burn something in order to burn this thing. So we're going to have to put energy in so that we can get some energy out. And yes, sometimes we have to still figure out a process to do this, but you'll get more energy out. You could get more energy out than the energy you put in. But sometimes the reverse happens. We haven't really figured it out yet. Ideally, we'd like to leave it in for another couple million years inside of the Earth and have the Earth do the rest of the cooking for us. But then again, we don't have a couple more million years. In fact, let's talk about how much more time we have. When I talk about how much more do we have? All right. Here's the thing about how much more do we have. First thing we need to bring up is there's a difference between the word reserves and resources. If I talk about the word reserves, I guess it's kind of like this. When you talk about reserves, it's like your savings account. Like, what is in your savings account right now? Well, it's $1,000 or something. I don't know. That is how much you have. That is how much proven resources we have. Whereas if I told you, how much resources do you have? Well, that includes how much money I have, but it also includes the car that I own, or the TV set that I have, and the computer that I have, and also, you know, maybe the fact that I've got a bachelor's degree is worth something. That's my resources. So that's not direct money, but I could turn that into money eventually. Or it's what I think I could have in the future. Does that make sense? So as far as resources wise, I have more resources than you do because I've got a bachelor's degree. And Sharon's got a great resource because she has a degree in computer engineering, and computer science tends to be more lucrative in this day and age than a physics degree does. But I mean, that's when we were talking about with resources. So we like to depend on the proven resources for oil. We don't like talking about we like talking about our reserves basically. We don't like talking about like what we could get in the future. We want to talk about what we do have. And here's the thing. In 2011, so this was a couple of years ago, this is the last time we got some data from this. The world has 46 years of proven resources to use. That means if we don't get anything in the future and we only rely on our savings account, we can survive for another 46 years. That sucks. And that's at the world using the energy at the rate it's using. If the world, okay, so that's for oil. For gas, it's 150 years. For coal, it's 120 years. So we've got some extra years on with gas and coal, but 46 years for oil. If we don't figure out a different thing, and we just use what we have, the proven resources that we have, we've got 46 more years. That is not even time enough for me to die. That means we got to figure out something before I die, because I don't want to do my retirement without any oil anywhere. So if the rest of the world caught up to what America does, like if because Africa doesn't use oil as fast as America does. We are the largest consumers in the world. Actually, I think we're the second largest to China now, but it's just because they have so many more people. As far as per capita, I think we're still the largest. Like as far as per people that we have, we're still the largest. But anyway, if the rest of the world catches up to just us, we would use up those 46 years 4 times faster, bringing it down to maybe 20 to 30 years. Can you think about that? In 20 to 30 years, we're going to have no more proven resources for our oil, our proven reserves. All right, let me show you what this graph shows, okay? So NOAA did an experiment, and they actually used a lot of the science that they have in, or a lot of the labs that they have in Hawaii. NOAA is actually a big part of Hawaii. It's the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration or something like that. But anyway, they made this graph, and let me show you how to read this graph. Can you guys see this thing? It's not really a graph, it's a picture.
Yeah.
All right. So the black numbers right here, you see that black number and this black number, 900, 3,000, 3,700, or 3,700, 37,100 in the black number. That is all of the oil that we have before humans. This is pre-human. Well, not really pre-human because we weren't using oil like we use it now, 100 years ago. So this is pre-100 years about. And what do they measure it in? They measure it in GTC. What is that? Well, we're not talking about a ton of carbon. So we're not talking about the surface of the ocean actually has 900 tons of carbon. We're talking about a gigaton of carbon. So apparently the surface of the ocean has 900 gigatons of carbon on the surface. Deep ocean or middle ocean has 37,100 gigatons of carbon. So you guys can read this thing. Fossil fuels has 3,700 gigatons of carbon, and that's only 3,700. So compare that with that. But that doesn't mean it's oil. That just means carbon. Like what kind of carbon are we looking at? And carbon is the basis for oil, but carbon is also the basis for life. So there's lots of carbon all over the place. I have a question for you. This is kind of an aside. Does that mean that the most abundant element in the universe is carbon? I mean, look how much carbon we're dealing with here. What is the most abundant? What is the most abundant elements in the universe? Do you know?
Hydrogen?
Hydrogen.
Oxygen? Oh, hydrogen.
Hydrogen and
Oh.
do you know?
Oxygen?
Oxygen? No.
Yeah.
Nitrogen?
In fact, there's not much oxygen out there. If you really compare it to how much there is in the universe, like we're the only planet that really has oxygen in our solar system, and even like in the there's other planets that we think might have oxygen, but we can't really confirm it.
Mm.
So it's helium, hydrogen, and helium. Hydrogen has 1 proton, helium has 2 protons, and those are the two that make it up. And the reason being is because actually the universe is made up of 98.5% hydrogen and helium. Everything else makes up less than 1%. Actually, I think it has 99 point something percent. Everything else makes up less than 1%. Isn't that kind of crazy? All right. Anyway, that was an aside. I was just wondering if you guys understood about that. But carbon's kind of important to us on Earth because we're carbon-based life forms. The fact of the matter is, we need carbon. We need carbon to burn. Carbon's energy. Carbon is what equates to life. In fact, if you have a planet that doesn't have carbon on it, no life. Does it make sense?
Something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty much the dumbed down version. All right. The red numbers are how much energy we are. The red numbers is what humans are doing. So fossil fuels has 3,700 gigatons of carbon. Humans, in their impact, have subtracted 244 gigatons of carbon. And you're thinking, hey, wait a second, that leaves like 3,500 gigatons of carbon left over in fossil fuels. And we've also added 165 gigatons of carbon into the atmosphere. It started off with 600 gigatons, we've added 165 gigatons of carbon. How's that for global warming? All right. But here's my thing that I'm saying is, if we are taking out, let's say we're taking out these gigatons of carbon, and we're burning it at a rate of 6.4 gigatons of carbon per year. And since this thing is old, let's say that it was 9. Because we're burning it at a rate faster than what this thing says. So this is kind of an old graph. So let's say 9. Doesn't that leave about 400 years left of energy inside of our oil?
Well, it depends on whether or not consumption goes up.
Well, no, I mean like 3,700 minus 244. You're talking about like subtracting off only a little bit. Why are you telling me there's 46 years left? If we're consuming it at 9 gigatons per thing, I'd subtract 3,500 divided by 9. What is that? That's
Little less
9,
than 400.
8, 12, or 9, 18, 27, 36. So about 400 years. So don't we have 400 years left? More? In fact, some people even say that it's between 4,000 and 6,000 more gigatons of oil reserves, or of stuff inside that we can use. So wouldn't that be even longer? Like, we're pretty set, right? And my answer to that is this. This 3,700 is not gigatons of oil. This 3,700 is gigatons of fossil fuels, of carbon. So that doesn't mean that we're talking about oil here. That's talking about like the carbon in the ground from fossil fuels, and most of that is oil shales and oil tar. But the problem is, if it were 3,700 gigatons of oil, then I wouldn't even have this class because we wouldn't be worried about it at all, right? It'd just be like, why the heck would you use responsible, or what you call it? Try to be responsible with the energy consumption that you're using when there's 4,000 years more left of the stuff that we have. No, that's not true. It's not even 400. There might not even be 40 years left of oil that we have, because the stuff that we can get out through the process of fracking, which is putting poop water in the ground, is not really good proven resources. You know what I mean? So we can't really say this is good stuff that we get, because it's not. All right, let's talk about this one. Who has the oil? So what I think is kind of interesting is America is the largest user of the oil, but we're not the largest producer of the oil. And some people are thinking that this fracking boom that we have, I just think it's so funny. But anyway, some people think that this fracking boom that we have might change how the America's oil production. But for now, we haven't really completely figured out how to burn the shales and whatnot. And well, we figured out how to burn it, but we haven't figured out how to burn it and use like an ideal amount of energy, or yield an ideal amount of energy. So what we did was we took this graph right here, and we went down to this U.S. Information Agency, and we took all the data, and we said, okay, let's look at America's oil production. We can look at the different states, and here's America's oil production. So we're kind of high. We're in the top, right? We got Russia, Saudi Arabia, and U.S. Apparently Saudi Arabia is going at 11.73. Russia's going at 10.4. We're going pretty heavy as well. But we're also, who's consuming all the oil? Well, we're definitely red, and China is red. So America, China, we're the oil consumers as well. Who's the lightweights when they're talking about drinking oil? That would be Africa. They don't use as much oil. Greenland, obviously. I don't know why I said obviously, but Greenland's less than down there. But 202 countries are less than us. No, not less than us, but 202 countries are in the small area. They use less than 1 million barrels per day. We use over 10 million barrels every day. That sucks. But anyway. Okay, let's see. Did I cover everything? What's really scary about it is, do you guys remember when I showed you, about the whales, and when we were talking about whale oil?
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
All right.
Somewhat.
I want to take a look at that real quickly, and I know my computer is going slow, but okay, wait. Going down. I want to go down to the whales. What do you think of this class so far, by the way? We kind of switch it up. I want to switch it back to the other one, but this is kind of a topic that I'm interested in talking about. But anyway, look, check this out. Okay, let's scroll down, because I noticed something over here.
Come on, computer, now's not the time to be silly.
Oh, the computer's always silly. Are you kidding me?
Well, if it continues to be silly, I will
This computer really is silly. If you can get me a new one,
I can always take a screwdriver to it.
I'd be greatly appreciated. Anyway, where's the oil? Where is the sup,
Your
dude?
Webex is so long. I'm leaving. Say goodbye and I'll turn that stuff in for you.
You are going to turn this stuff in, or you did turn it?
I'm going to.
All right, I'll trust you. Anyway,
I have to rush home.
okay, rush on.
But there's my packet. Bye. Thank you.
Oh, is this? Oh, this is Brandy's. Okay. Darn, where's my?
I think it was less than 1.
Oh yeah, it was still. Oh, it was less than 1. Darn it. I'm sorry.
It's because I was there for lesson 1, but not for lesson 2 because I was busy.
Okay, I'm sorry. I want to go into it real quick, and I know I'm going a little bit over time, but hey, I spent 15 minutes teaching you math and teaching Austin music, so I get some time at the end. Fair enough?
Part 4? You can just click on it.
Oh, crud. Alright, anyway. Because I thought this was really interesting when I saw it. I was like, that is going to suck. I'm going to show you something that I think is going to suck. Alright, here it is. This is it. Alright, so the blue line was... Alright, so the red line is how many oils the red line is how many whalers we have. Okay? There's a lot of... and how much whale oil we're using. Got it? That's the red dots. And so the black line is the trend for that. And the amount that the price that whale oil was, or that cost, is graphed in this blue line. And now look. When we were on, this is how we used whale oil. Did price get really high for whale oil when we ran out of it?
Yeah, it did.
It did, but that's not when it got high. It just was high. What about price?
Mm-hmm.
Did whale oil prices skyrocket or like plummet when we found a new form of energy? Because you figured that like if you have whale oil, right, and then all of a sudden we found this. Hey, guess what? We've learned how to dig an oil well, save the whales because we don't need to kill them anymore. We can just use up all of the dead plants that the Earth has been providing for us for the last couple of million years. You figured that the price of whale oil would be not worth as much anymore because you don't need it as much anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did it plummet then? Did it like drop?
Mm.
No, not really.
Sort of.
No, I would say no, not really at all. When did the price of whale oil get huge? Like it spiked right over here and it kind of stayed up high. When did it get huge? The crazy thing is when we were using the most amount of whale oil. When we had the most amount of whalers out there, prices, like all of a sudden, prices got huge. And you know why? Because as soon as the graph started to dip, they realized, oh crap, we're overwhaling these animals. As soon as it started to dip, they said, oh my goodness, this is going to be a bad thing. And so the economy responded by jacking up the price. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm afraid of, is not necessarily when we run out of oil, but when we start, when the rest of the world kind of catches up to what I'm telling you now, about like we're going to start to realize that we might actually stop being able to rely on oil. All right, and here's a really scary thought. I'm just going to read this to you because I need to make sure I get this right. The rise of oil and gas, or the rise of gas and oil fracking in the United States has led to a rapid increase in reserves. We got more because we realized we have more. We can break up this stuff. You may hear people talking about a century worth of gas. That means we have, these gases for another 100 years, and we'll be all right. Don't worry, we'll be all right. Although some others use the smaller number, like 25 years. Because we added fracking to the process, we can have now 25 years, all right? But at the start of fracking, gas was only a quarter of the energy's used, so relying on gas as our main fuel could bump the low estimates down to only about 6 years. Is that not crazy or what? You could find some justification for bragging about a century of gas, or numbers could actually go down, estimates can go down to 6 years. I don't know which number is more correct, But whether it's a century or whether it's 6 fracking years, I'm a little scared because you folks actually might live for another century. And that's the high estimate. You're definitely, hopefully, you're going to live for another 6 years. That's a low estimate. But you understand how this could be really bad. All right. And did I talk about where everything is? I talked about, oh no, I didn't talk about who has what. So here's who has what. America has oil, and we have mostly coal, and we have a little bit of gas. We could have more gas if we introduce fracking to the whole thing, and then we're going to have more gas and whatnot, resources. Who has the most of the oil in the world? And we're talking about percentages here. Who has the most oil? Right there. 51%. That's the Middle East. Those guys who are fighting all the time, killing themselves, killing each other, it's all over oil, by the way, have the most oil.
Mostly over oil.
Yes. In fact, a lot of people would argue that the only reason why we have our troops there is because they have the most oil. And if we befriend them, then we're going to get the most oil. And guess what? Guess what, folks? We went into the Desert Storm and we were protecting Kuwait from Saddam Hussein because he was a crazy dude, and actually certifiably I would say he was a crazy dude, but we went and protected Kuwait, and guess what we get now? We don't get any contracts that are any better than any other country that didn't protect Kuwait for getting their oil. We don't get any price reduction. We pay the same, if not more, and we only have minor contracts, and the major contracts are the guys in India who didn't protect them in the first place. How do you like them apples? But anyway, I'm not here to gripe about that or even have an opinion about that, but I'm just saying that they have 51% of this oil. And we only have 14% of the oil, and we use up all of ours. In fact, not only do we use up all of ours, we have a huge industry in importing oils. And as I told you once before, if you are spending about $4,000 each year for each person on energy, 1,000 of those dollars is going to pretty much Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, because they're the ones where we need their oil. So we bring it all in, that kind of stuff. We might be bringing it in for the next 100 years. We might bring it in for the next 6 years. I don't really know. I suspect that it might be like that 40-year estimate that I gave you. But that's kind of scary too. And what's kind of cool about it is, like, you can see how, like, even though Europe pretty much doesn't have any resources, they like sucked when it came to like God giving out the here's one for you and one for you and one for you. Yeah, Europe didn't get anything. Sorry, Europe, you got screwed. The Asia has a lot of coal. In fact, a lot of it's in Australia and a lot of it's in China. Brazil has a lot of oil, not necessarily Brazil, but more like the Gulf area. So those guys over there, and they've got a lot of oil that they use a lot. And we have a lot of oil, and you can see how this would be kind of important for us to trade, right? Like, since we use the most amount of oil, we would want a lot of oil from the people who got a lot of oil, and they probably don't use as much oil as we do. Probably not even close, even though they have enough to like sleep in it or whatever they do with it. They can make a lot of money by selling it to us, and so this is the introduction to world economy. Hey, guess what? You're taking world economy too. I mean, this is pretty much the entire point behind trade, is people want to trade energy, and the energy is not distributed evenly, which is some kind of sick joke that I actually kind of find very funny.
Well, you're not in Europe.
Yeah, I'm not the guy in Europe who basically doesn't have anything to produce. I got to buy everything from everybody else. So people are going to say, wait a second, where do we get all of this carbon energy from anyway? Where do we get all these fossil fuels? And you would say, well, we got them from the earth. The Earth made them for us. That was nice of Earth. Thank you, Mr. Earth. All right. So we're burning 9 gigatons of carbon every year. About. That's the maybe my estimate for now. It went from 6.4 to 9 since the last time this picture came out. We cool? How fast does it? How fast does it take for the Earth to make a gigaton of carbon?
Boy.
Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you. The Earth makes a whopping 0.00001 gigaton of carbon every year. It only takes 500 million years for the resource. I mean, we're burning up a lot of resources, and we have a lot of resources, but that only took 500 million years to make, and it makes it at a rate of 0.00001 gigatons of carbon per year. So we're burning our fuel. Like, it's kind of like saying, hey, don't I have a lot of money in my savings account? Can I spend it really quickly? And doesn't my saving account like accumulate interest? It's a percentage based off of how much you have in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're spending 1,000,000 times faster than the interest is accumulating. You're going to use up that savings account really quickly. That's what we're doing, ladies and gentlemen. We are burning up these fossil fuels 1,000,000 times faster than the Earth can make it. We're burning it up at 9 gigatons per year, and the Earth is making it at 0.00001 gigaton per year. Have a great weekend.
What a cheerful note to end it on.
No, I want you to think about these things. Like, I want you to be like, wow, this actually motivates me to actually want to learn about smart grid and renewable energy. Because if not, Mr. Dalday we're going to run out of oil before Mr. Dalday retires. And although that would be an atrocity, we're going to run out of oil while I'm still while I'm doing my PhD or whatever, like, this is going to be a big problem for you. In fact, it's a bigger problem for you than it is for me, because I'm going to die maybe about 10 years or 20 years before you. So, chew on that, suckers. You guys are like my kids' generation. You guys are going to be in trouble. I'm just kind of warning you guys and saying, figure it out. You guys better figure it out before I get old.
I feel old.
We're about the same age, and kind of old.
I believe you're younger than I am.
Yeah, we're old together. You and I are old. I'm just letting you know. I'm just saying. Anyway, have a great weekend. I hope that you guys enjoyed the lecture. I had fun doing it.
Yes, you did.
I'm going to post this content up, and you can read all of this stuff for yourself and digest it slowly. But I pretty much lectured straight from it, but I want you to read it anyway. I'm going to post the assignments because I haven't really been doing good at posting assignments for this class. I'll make sure to do that, and I'm going to try to do that right now. And you guys have a good weekend. Did you think it was interesting?
Yeah.
Okay. If you have any trouble whatsoever at all with math, please let me know, because I actually have fun teaching math. It's something I like doing.
Okay.
All right. Talk to you later. Okay, bye.